My name is Emma, and I have always prioritized family. My parents, my older sister Julia, and I grew up in a little Springfield house. Julia was always the family star because she was more attractive, well liked, and somehow always got what she wanted. Although I adore my sister, it was not always easy to live in her shadow. I am employed as a marketing analyst at Market Tech Solutions. I've been working hard, staying up late, and taking on extra tasks there for the past 5 years. I was certain I was in danger when my boss summoned me into his office last Tuesday. Mr. Thompson motioned to the chair across from his desk and said, "Emma, take a seat. I've been watching your performance over the past year, and I'm impressed." I moved uneasily in my seat, anticipating the but that typically accompanied such claims. "I would like you to be in charge of the marketing division at our new location in Colorado. It includes a significant pay increase and, of course, reimbursement for moving costs. Give it some thought, and by the end of the week, let me know." I spent the remainder of the day floating. This was the opportunity I had been waiting for to prove myself, to leave Julia's shadow, to forge my own way. I was eager to share with my family. We had our monthly family meal that night, and I virtually skipped inside my parents' house. Julia had not yet arrived. She now resided across town with her husband, David, a wealthy accountant. Mom said, "You look happy," while she stirred the pasta. Yes, I am. Today, I received some incredible news. Await the arrival of everyone. We all sat down to dine when David and Julia showed up. When Dad poured the wine, I lost all self-control. "I got promoted." I spoke without thinking. "They want me to be in charge of marketing for the new location in Colorado." Colorado. Mom's expression dimmed. "But that's so far away." "I understand. But this is such a fantastic chance. The pay is nearly double what I currently earn." Mom set her fork down. "Emma, this isn't a good time for you to leave." I said, "What do you mean?" Julia looked down at her plate abruptly as Mom gazed at her. Since the birth of the child, Julia had been having difficulties. She was diagnosed with postpartum depression by the physician. I gave my sister a startled look. 2 months earlier, Julia had given birth to my nephew, Ethan. Yes, she did appear exhausted, but I was unaware of how terrible the situation was. "I'm sorry, Julia. I had no idea," I said. Julia used a handkerchief to wipe at her eyes. "I didn't want to worry anyone, but it's been really hard." Mom grabbed Julia's hand and squeezed it. At this time, she needs family assistance. They can't afford a full-time nanny, and David puts in a lot of overtime. In fact, we were considering the possibility that it would be best if Julia and David moved in here for a while, just until she recovers, Dad said. I could feel my dream vanishing. I said, "But the promotion." With firmness, Mom stated, "There will be other promotions. Emma, family comes first. Right now, Julia needs you." I glanced around the table at Julia's sad eyes, my father's contrite expression, and my mother's resolute countenance. I considered how the chance had passed me by, but I also considered my little nephew, who was in need of his family. I responded, "You're right, at last. First and foremost, family. I will inform Mr. Thompson that I am unable to accept the employment." My mother's expression instantly lit up with relief. "You're doing the right thing, Emma." Julia grabbed my hand as she stretched across the table. She said, "Thank you," in a whisper. "I don't know what I'd do without you." David, Julia, and baby Ethan moved into our parents' home a week later. I negotiated a little raise while remaining in my existing role. It was something, but not Colorado. I began contributing $2,000 of my monthly income to Julia's medical costs and child-related expenses. My routine was abruptly altered. While my parents were cooking and Julia was sleeping, I would work all day, come home for a brief dinner, and then take over baby duty. I would bathe him, change his diapers, rock him, and put him to bed. I was tired by the time I climbed into my own bed, but I reminded myself that this was only a temporary situation. After Julia recovered, everything would resume as usual. I would be given another opportunity to progress. Family came first for the time being. We Wilsons remained united despite everything. Weeks became months, and before I knew it, a full year had gone by. The pattern of my life had become predictable. Work, home, babysitting, sleep, repeat. Despite my constant fatigue, I persuaded myself that it was worthwhile for my family. I would leave the home quickly every morning when Julia was still too exhausted to get up with Ethan. She was lying on the sofa every night when I got back, saying she had a bad day. My parents hung about her as if she were about to snap. "How are you feeling today, sweetie?" While I warmed up Ethan's bottle, Mom would ask Julia. Julia would say, "Still so foggy," in a theatrical manner. "The medication just makes me feel like a zombie." I would remove Ethan from Mom's embrace. "I have him. Before it becomes chilly, the two of you ought to have dinner." Ethan was already a year old and growing more unruly by the day. Even though I was angry that I had taken on the role of primary caregiver for my young nephew while his mother healed, I had come to love him very much. I must admit that I began to notice some discrepancies. Like when I got home early from work and saw Julia's handbag stuffed with mall shopping bags, or how, even though she said she couldn't take a shower some days, she always managed to have brand new clothing and flawless hair and nails. "Didn't you say Julia couldn't leave the house yesterday because of her anxiety?" One evening, after discovering a meal receipt from a fancy restaurant in the kitchen garbage, I questioned Mom. Mom dismissed it with a wave of her hand. According to the doctor, she benefits from periodically going outside. All of this is included in the treatment plan. Even though I nodded, I felt uneasy. Once I caught a glimpse of Julia and her pals through the window of the coffee shop close to my workplace. Unlike the gloomy woman who could hardly move off the couch when I was there, she had been laughing enthusiastically. Then came the day that everything was different. Even the strongest painkillers were unable to cure the splitting headache I had when I woke up. My supervisor instructed me to go home and relax since I was having trouble seeing by lunchtime. I hadn't phoned anyone in advance to let them know I would be returning home early. Julia normally kicked off her favorite shoes at the entrance, but I noticed they weren't there as I came into the driveway. It was strange because she had informed me that she hadn't felt good enough to dress for days. I silently let myself in with the intention of lying down right away in my room. Then I'd heard it, the sound of Julia's distinctive chuckle coming from the kitchen. It was her full-bodied, head-thrown-back laugh, which I hadn't heard in months, not a kind chuckle or a feeble grin. Then, in between giggles, I heard her add, "We totally lost track of time when Melissa ordered another round of mimosas." We had to be reminded by the waiter that they were shutting for the afternoon. For a minute, I forgot about my headache and stood still in the corridor. This person didn't sound like they were afflicted with crippling despair. I opened the kitchen door with a shove. Mom and Julia were seated at the table, grinning at each other while sipping coffee and eating the remaining cake from Dad's birthday. Julia's expression changed when she saw me. Her shoulders drooped, the smile disappeared, and she grabbed a tissue. She whispered, "Emma," in that frail voice I had come to know. "I was surprised that you came home so early." She watched me intently and stated, "I have a migraine. I couldn't concentrate at work." Mom leaped to her feet instantly. "Oh, you miserable creature. I'll fetch you an ice pack and some tea." I answered, "No need," while continuing to gaze at Julia. "What did the two of you laugh about?" It had a humorous sound. Mom and Julia glanced at each other. Mom remarked, "Oh, just a silly commercial on TV." "I thought I heard you talking about mimosas and a waiter," I said. Julia used the tissue to dab at her eyes. Just a previous story. Well, prior to Ethan. Mom forces me to talk about better days sometimes. It helps, Dr. Harrison adds. I approached Mom in the kitchen that evening after putting Ethan to bed, while Julia was taking one of her lengthy healing baths and Dad was watching TV. "Mom, is postpartum depression still affecting Julia?" After a year, she still appears to be doing well at times. As she dried a dish, Mom stiffened. "She is, of course." "Why would you ask that?" She was talking about going out with pals when I heard her giggling today. That doesn't sound like a person who is really depressed. Emma, Mom firmly stated. Her illness includes mood swings. There are better days and bad days. You shouldn't judge something you don't comprehend. I'm not passing judgment. I simply want to confirm that we are assisting her rather than enabling her. Mom's voice soared, enabling. Your sister is ill. She is receiving medical care. You have no right to inquire about her ailment. I gave in, but I was unable to sleep that night. I took out my laptop and began reading up on postpartum depression. Article after article on symptoms, remedies, and deadlines caught my attention. Although mood swings were highlighted, the overall picture didn't align with what I was witnessing with Julia. Normally, women with PPD found it difficult to care for their infants, but Julia handed Ethan off to me and vanished with ease, despite their frequent disregard for self-care. Julia never skipped her shopping or hair appointments. According to the majority of publications, with the right care, healing generally started in a few months. After a year, Julia didn't appear to have gotten any better, at least not while I was around. I made another attempt to speak with Mom the next morning. I showed her a few of the articles that I had discovered. I said, I'm just concerned with caution. These symptoms don't really match what we're seeing with Julia. My mother grabbed my phone. What's the matter with you? According to Dr. Harrison, who I talked with yesterday, Julia's condition is especially challenging. She won't recuperate by following some online checklist. I took a step back, yet I continued to observe. I observed Julia's behavior and patterns more closely over the course of the following few weeks. I saw how she would get excited when she thought no one was watching, how she would text right away but cover it up when I walked in, and how her bad days neatly fell around obligations to her family that she didn't want to face. There was something wrong, and I was going to find out what it was. I received some positive news at work around this time. Once more, Mr. Thompson summoned me to his office. Emma, although I am aware that you were unable to accept the Colorado Post last year, I want you to know that your hard work has not gone unappreciated. You have been promoted to Senior Marketing Analyst. A 15% pay rise is included. I nearly burst into tears of relief. Finally, something positive after everything that had transpired. Mr. Thompson, thank you very much. This is really important to me. I made the decision that night to keep it a secret from my family. I had a feeling that they would figure out a way to claim the majority of that additional money for Julia's medical care or another emergency. So I said nothing and kept sending them the same $2,000 a month that I had been sending them all along. The remainder was immediately deposited into my savings account. I was quite exhausted by this time. It was exhausting to work full-time and then return home to be Ethan's sole caregiver. It had been more than a year since my last trip. I hadn't even had a private weekend. Before I really lost it, I needed a break. One evening at supper, I declared, I'm considering taking some time off, only a week. I was examining Hawaii travel packages. Hawaii? Mom glanced up from Ethan's feeding. That sounds expensive. I've been saving, and the current offer is fantastic. I need some time off. I think that's a great idea, Dad responded, a support that surprised me. Everyone needs a break sometimes. Julia gave a nod. Emma, you ought to leave. Ethan has benefited much from your assistance. You are deserving. I was dubious of their easy agreement, but I was too thrilled at the idea of going on vacation to think about it. Only a month away, in the second week of May, I reserved my ticket and a room at a hotel on the sea. I had something to look forward to for the first time in a long time. Over the following 2 weeks, I talked about my trip a lot, in part because I was eager and in part to make sure that everyone knew I would be gone. I even scheduled more time off work and posted it on the family calendar in the kitchen. When I got home from work the day before I left, Julia and David were in the living room with bags all about them. What's going on? With a sick sensation in my gut, I asked. David appeared contrite. According to her physician, Julia requires specialist care. An intense therapy for postpartum depression that is resistant to treatment is available at a facility in Malibu. Malibu? I said it again. When are you going? She said, tomorrow morning, Julia. For a week. A week? However, we are aware that it falls during your vacation. Mom came in from the kitchen and interrupted. It's unfortunate timing, but Dr. Harrison says Julia can't wait any longer for this treatment. So who's going to watch Ethan? I knew the answer when I asked. We were hoping you could postpone your trip, Dad said. Just for a few weeks. I was astounded by their boldness as I stood there. Tomorrow is my flight. I'll forfeit the money for the plane ticket and the hotel deposit. The tears filled Julia's eyes. I apologize so much, Emma. Dr. Harrison thinks this program could be the final thing that helps me recover, even if I didn't expect for this to happen. I studied their faces. David's visibly uncomfortable expression, Mom's severe frown, Dad's guilty avoidance, and Julia's planned tears. Something broke inside of me. Fine, I said firmly. I'll cancel my trip. After calling to cancel everything and losing about $800 in non-refundable deposits, I sat on my bed later that night and experienced a feeling I hadn't let myself experience in a long time. Pure, unadulterated rage. This was just too easy, too well timed to throw my plans off. Julia and David departed for their Malibu treatment program early the following morning. Mom went to her reading club, while Dad went to play golf. As usual, Ethan and I were alone. I put him to sleep and then stood in the hallway, gazing at the door of Julia and David's bedroom. I needed to know the truth, even though I had never snooped before. I pulled the door open and started looking. Nothing out of the ordinary was in the drawers of the dresser. New clothing with tags still on them filled the closet. I looked at the nightstands, but nothing was there. There were no therapy workbooks, medication bottles, or doctor's notes to suggest Julia was receiving treatment for anything. Then I noticed that her laptop was still open and unlocked on the desk. After a brief moment of hesitation, I sat down to observe. She had many tabs open for social media and email. I discovered a lengthy conversation with her friend Melissa, the same Melissa from the mimosa story I had overheard. When I clicked on her Facebook messages, scrolling through weeks' worth of texts made my hands shake. Julia complained that she had to pretend to be miserable around me. Then I noticed my name. Melissa. Does Emma suspect anything? Julia. Definitely not. She is such an innocent idiot who is blind to everything. Simply gives the money and provides free babysitting. It's nearly too simple. As I read on, I felt nauseous. Julia. I believe we can extend this for a minimum of 1 more year. After that, I may recuperate, resume my job, and enroll Ethan in childcare. Emma won't be as helpful by then anyhow. Melissa. Your parents are still on board. Julia. Absolutely. When we feel it's time, they'll inform Emma I'm cured. Everyone benefits from Emma's wealth, and they adore having their favorite daughter and grandchild live with them. The arrangement is great. Melissa. Jadodes, you are a master at deception. However, do you not feel guilty about using your sister? Why should I, Julia? In any case, she has always been envious of me. In addition, we've saved a ton of money this year on childcare, so she can afford it. I reclined, shock numbing my entire body. Every crying moment, every miserable day, every justification, all of it was a lie. For a whole year, Julia had been pretending to be depressed while I pushed myself to the bone, taking care of her child and providing for them with my money. My parents were also aware. They weren't on it. Mom texted me on my phone, asking if I could have supper ready by 6 o'clock. We failed to ask what you wanted when we brought Chinese food home for ourselves. Not even food was being brought for me. Despite being so little, it somehow crystallized everything. I closed the laptop just as I'd found it, taking pictures of Julia's talks as proof. For the following 4 days, I made preparations in secret while feigning normalcy. After months of pressuring me to leave my family, I gave my buddy Stacy a call. While I search for an apartment, I need somewhere to stay, only for a few weeks. Stacy answered, as long as you need, without hesitation. I've got your back. I waited until the day before Julia and David were scheduled to return from Malibu, where they were presumably on a lavish vacation for their treatment program. I had seen their social media posts about beach walks, spa treatments, and poolside beverages that they claimed were private from me. My parents were downstairs watching TV. With Ethan that night when I began packing my things, the expressions on their faces were amazing as I brought my baggage down. Emma? Mom got to her feet. What's going on? I'm leaving, was all I said. Dad scowled. You're leaving? What do you mean? Now you can't go. Julie isn't even at home. Exactly. Julie is on vacation in Malibu and isn't receiving treatment for a fake ailment. Therefore, she's not at home. My parents looked at each other in alarm. Mom remarked, Emma, you're not making any sense, in a hesitant tone. Julia is rather ill. She is at an institution for specialized therapy. I showed them the pictures I had taken of Julia's text to Melissa on my phone. She's been faking it for a year, and you both knew. Mom's face turned pale. Dad began stuttering about miscommunications. I responded, You've all been using me. And I was taken aback by how composed I sounded. You stole my money. My time was taken by you. You forced me to cancel my trip and forfeit a promotion. I served as both an ATM and a free nanny for you. Dad attempted to say, Emma, this is all a misunderstanding. We were just trying to help Julia. No, you were taking advantage of me to aid Julia. She's always been your favorite, but this is more than that. This is deception. Mom's voice hardened as she changed strategies. You're acting absurdly. We are a single family. We support one another. Help each other? I gave a sour laugh. Would any of you have been able to assist me? I have precisely calculated the amount that you have stolen from me. $24,000 from my last year's pay, plus around $12,000 for child care services if I had received payment for babysitting. I'm owed $36,000 by you. Dad got to his feet, his face flushed. You're being ridiculous now. There is nothing that we owe you. That is the role of family. No, Dad. Family members don't deceive and control one another. Families don't pretend to be mentally sick in order to escape accountability. I'll take you to court if you don't repay me. You wouldn't dare, angrily said Mom. I have communications from Julia acknowledging the scam. All of my transfers are documented on my bank statements. Even the receipt from the Malibu Treatment Center, which is actually a posh resort and spa, is in my possession. Knowing that David took part in this scam would undoubtedly pique his employer's attention. Dad's face became white. You destroy your sister's marriage. Break up this family. You already broke this family when you decided to exploit me, I said. You have a week to get the funds to my account. If you don't, I'll press charges and make sure that everyone, friends, family, your church congregation, and everyone else knows what you did. This is outrageous, Mom sputtered. After everything we've done for you. Aside from stealing my time and money, what specifically have you done for me recently, Mom? While his real mother goes shopping and goes out to drinks with friends, I have been working full-time and coming home to be a father to a child who isn't even mine. After gathering my belongings, I made my way to the exit. You can't just leave. I was called after by Mom. What about Ethan? With my hand on the handle, I turned around. 2 parents and 2 grandparents make up Ethan's family. Perhaps they ought to start behaving like it. Even though I could hear my mother calling my name, I left without turning around. Stacy stood at the curb in her vehicle waiting. She grasped my hand as I entered. You okay? No, I said truthfully, but I will be. I leased a 1-bedroom apartment close to my workplace 3 days later. Mine was tiny, but ideal. I have no one to exploit. I have no one to blame for prioritizing myself. David and Julia bombarded my phone with texts and calls when they got back from Malibu. They were first indignant, then contrite, and finally begging. Please speak with us, Julia. We had no intention of things getting this bad. David and Emma, we sincerely apologize. Let's get together and resolve this. None of them got a response from me. As I had warned, a week after I departed, I got a notice by bank transfer. $36,000 from Julia and David's joint account. There was no message included. We sent the money, Julia. Can we speak right now? At last, I answered. You gave me what I needed. Never get in touch with me again. I then disabled their social media accounts, emails, and phone numbers. When my parents reached out, I responded in kind. I've been gone from my family for 6 months now. I miss them sometimes, or more accurately, I miss the person I believed them to be. I don't miss being used and taken advantage of, but I do regret the notion of being a part of a family that genuinely cared about one another. Although I currently work at Market Tech, there are speculations that a new location may open in Austin the following year. I've expressed my interest to Mr. Thompson already. The farther distance from this city and its memories, the better. Not for their sake, but for my own, I occasionally lie awake at night, wondering if I will ever be able to forgive them. I still feel angry and betrayed, which makes it difficult for me to trust new people. I'm working on it, though. I'm putting money aside for a down payment on a house of my own. I should have enough in 2 years. Maybe Stacy is correct when she suggests that I consider treatment. My family is not the same as everyone else. If I let people in, not everyone will take advantage of me. Julia and I met up at the grocery store the other day. Ethan's voice called out to me, Emma, Emma, as I was in the vegetable department. He was reaching for me from a grocery cart as I turned around. Now that he's almost 2, he talks more. Julia appeared to have seen a ghost as she remained still next to him. I had a little twinge of desire. That youngster was missed. Then I recalled all that his mother had accomplished and all that my parents had made possible. I dropped the fruit in my hand, turned, and left. I wasn't followed by Julia. Perhaps one day I'll start a new family, one based on mutual support and honesty rather than exploitation. But for the time being, I'm concentrating on getting better, creating the life I deserve, and recognizing that I am important. And I'll be prepared for a new beginning when that move to Austin occurs. A new city, new people, and new opportunities. An opportunity to establish myself as Emma, a woman who at last learned to prioritize herself, rather than as Ethan's aunt, Julia's sister, or the family doormat. On a Saturday morning, I was startled awake by my phone's grating buzzing. I didn't want to start my weekend that way. I lay over, moaned, and looked at the caller ID. My folks. Fantastic. I said, attempting to get over my grogginess, hello. What the devil were you thinking, Lisa? I had to remove the phone from my ear since my mother's voice was so loud. What are you discussing, Mom? I sat up and became acutely aware. There was clearly a problem. Don't be foolish around us. You destroyed part of our rural home with fire. My father's words echoed loudly in the background. A beat skipped in my chest. What? I didn't alter the house in any way. It had been more than a month since my last visit. Then tell me, Mom yelled. My phone was buzzing with new pictures. I gasped as I opened them. The kitchen was utterly demolished, with burnt furniture, melted equipment, and scorched walls. It was surrounded by heavy black soot in the adjacent living room. Mom went on. Harper told us she was throwing a party at the house. Now observe what transpired. Harper. I was shocked by what I was hearing. I've been so busy at work, Mom. It's been weeks since I left the city. I wasn't this person. Oh, really? Then Lisa, who was it? Our keys and your keys are the only 2 sets we have. You must provide us the money as soon as possible because the damage is estimated to be $30,000. $30,000. I almost choked. I'm not giving you any money. This is not what I did. Harper was most likely the one. She enjoys hosting gatherings at her home. You dare. Mom's voice raised a note. Your sister would never act in this manner. She had to ask before stealing our keys. I gave a sour laugh. Are you serious? How many times has she stolen my belongings without my consent? Do you not recall? She stole my cosmetics and clothing all the time while I was in high school. She stole my car last year and broke the headlight without asking. Dad said, that was different. Harper would never mislead us on such a grave matter. I'll be over, I responded confidently. We need to discuss this in person. Before they could dispute, I hung off and tossed my phone on the bed, saying, I'll be there in a couple hours. This was unthinkable. I was still dealing with the same old family drama at the age of 30, Harper getting away with everything and my parents constantly siding with my sister. My rage only increased as I bathed and dressed. For the previous 5 years, I had been helping my parents pay the mortgage on their rural home, but they were unable to do so when Dad lost his job. Who took the initiative? Me, Harper, no, me. I recalled the day my parents purchased the property. Even though it put a strain on their financially, they were quite proud. It was intended to serve as a getaway for our family and a location for creating memories. Rather, it had evolved into Harper's private party space. I had witnessed her throwing crazy parties there on several occasions, but I kept it a secret from our parents. Harper had pleaded with me not to, saying it would ruin her reputation as the ideal daughter. I said nothing but cautioned her to be careful and clean up after herself. That did a lot of good. I had plenty of time to stew throughout the nearly 2-hour journey to my folks' place. I was prepared for a fight by the time I arrived into their driveway. Mom frowned when she opened the door. Lisa, you have greatly disappointed your father and me. I pushed by her and shouted, Save it. Where's Harper? My sister was relaxing on the couch in the living room when I saw that she had a big white bandage on her right arm. How did your arm turn out? I narrowed my eyes and asked. Harper scowled at me and said, It's none of your business. Mom ran over to join her. Avoid disturbing your sister. At the gym, she sprained her wrist. You mean the gym? My arms were crossed. Remove the dressing. Show me this sprain. Harper's cheeks became red. You can't just in here and say that I set the house on fire. You don't have any evidence. Regarding the fire, I said nothing. Interesting that your thoughts immediately went there. That's sufficient. Dad moved in between us. Stop blaming your sister for your actions, Lisa. What did I do? I was shocked by what I was hearing. Harper clearly committed this. Since her arm is most likely burnt rather than injured, she won't even show it to us. Mom's expression tightened. We'll take you to court if you don't pay us the $30,000 to clean up this mess. I gazed at my family, my parents staring at me with utter mistrust, and my sister with her curiously bound arm. Looking at strangers was like that. Do anything you want, I answered at last. To personally inspect the damage, I'm heading to the country house. With trembling hands, I climbed back into my car and slammed the door as I was leaving. Memories came flooding back as I approached the country house. Over the years, how many times had I filled in for Harper? How often had my parents decided to believe her instead of me? Harper's friends were loud, careless, and always drank too much and smoked inside despite my repeated warnings about fire hazards. I recalled the many weekends I'd spent cleaning up after Harper's parties at the country house. Beer bottles hidden in the bushes, cigarette burns on the furniture that I'd carefully cover up, the time I discovered someone's underwear in the hot tub. I tightened my hold on the steering wheel. I was not going to let Harper get away with it this time. I was going to obtain evidence this time. My head was buzzing with potential throughout the entire trip to the country property. I wanted proof, something tangible, that Harper was at fault. I headed for our country home along the well-known gravel route. I could sense that something was off even from the outside. Soot had stained the kitchen glass, but before I entered, I had a thought. I took out my phone and dialed Harper's alleged best friend, Megan. When Megan answered, I said, Hey Megan, it's Lisa. She said, seeming uneasy, Oh, hi Lisa. What's going on? I firmly stated, I am aware of what transpired at the party. I am aware of the fire that occurred at my parents' rural home. Megan stumbled. I have no idea what you're talking about. It has been weeks since I last saw Harper. I made the decision to exert more effort. Look, Megan, there are now cops engaged. There will be court dates, penalties, and an inquiry. Arson charges might be brought against everyone present. However, I might be able to assist if you tell me the truth right away. After a little period of silence, Megan broke the silence. All right. Last weekend, we were all there, she acknowledged. Harper invited around 15 individuals. Things got out of hand when someone tried to prepare flaming shots in the kitchen. No one alerted the fire brigade when the curtains took fire and later spread to the cabinets. I gripped the phone tighter and said, "Harper wouldn't allow us?" She was frantic and threatened to be killed by her parents. We attempted to extinguish it on our own. Harper was severely burnt while attempting to move a blazing skillet, but we were able to prevent it from spreading to the rest of the home. After that, we took her to the urgent care facility. Then, without notifying anyone, you all simply left. Harper forced us to keep our mouths shut. She claimed to have thought up a narrative about getting wounded at the gym. Megan's voice was one of sincere regret. "I apologize, Lisa. It was wrong to keep it secret," I informed her. I hung up after saying, "Thanks for being honest." Furious, I sat in my car. Harper attempted to place the blame on me after throwing another party and setting the home on fire. Furthermore, my parents had unquestioningly believed her. The neighbor across the street was outdoors watering plants when I got out of my car. Mr. Carlson, a former security officer who largely kept to himself, had resided there for years. However, I recalled that he had put in security cameras following a few local break-ins the previous year. "Mr. Carlson," I yelled as I approached his property. "Hello, this is Lisa. I want to know whether you noticed anything strange at our house lately." He put his watering can down. "Hello, Lisa. Actually, yes. A week or so ago, your sister and many children were over there. Created a tremendous commotion." My heart pounded. "Have you seen anything else?" Well, for a time, the home was emitting smoke. I nearly dialed the fire department, but I decided against it. Then, like bats out of hell, they're all racing out and driving off. "Mister, do your security cameras detect our property, Carlson?" I questioned cautiously. He gave a nod. "At least the front driveway. I had a nice view of that." "Is there any way I could view the video from that day?" After 20 minutes, I found myself gazing at pristine video proof. Harper's automobile arrived first, followed by a few others, according to the timestamp. A few hours later, smoke was visible coming from the kitchen's direction. Following the mass departure, there was a good view of Harper clutching her arm as two friends assisted her to her car. I inquired, "Could I get a copy of this?" Mr. Carlson gave a shrug. "Sure thing. I'll put it on a USB drive for you." With the footage in hand, I took a brief tour of the house. The kitchen was completely destroyed. The pricey granite worktops split from the heat, the cupboards were burned, and the equipment were melted. The remainder of the home appeared undamaged, but the living room was completely damaged by smoke. Fortunately, I took a USB drive and immediately returned to my parents' place. Even though my blood was boiling, seeing confirmation made me feel oddly at ease. Harper was still playing the victim on the couch when I entered. My parents, obviously irritated that I had come back, glanced up. I held out the USB device and remarked, "I think we need to watch something together." Dad said, "What's that supposed to be?" "Evidence," I said, plugging it into their television. The room became quiet as the video began to play. Everything was there. The smoke, Harper's car, the timestamp, the hurried departure. Undeniable. Harper eventually said, "That doesn't prove anything," but her voice was trembling. "Really?" I said, turning to look at her. "Should I call Megan and put her on speaker?" "She told me everything, Harper. The flaming shots you made, getting burned trying to move a burning pan, the trip to urgent care. Or should we just unwrap that sprain and take a look?" Tears sprang to Harper's eyes. She turned to face our parents, who were glued to the screen's motionless picture of her automobile. She screamed, I was scared, as she pulled off her bandage to show a red, enraged burn that extended from her wrist up her forearm. "It was an accident. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." When Mom saw the burn, she gasped, "Harper, why didn't you tell us the truth?" "Because you always expect me to be perfect," Harper sobbed. Lisa is the responsible one who can do whatever she wants. I'm supposed to be your perfect little girl. I waited for my parents to express regret for their treatment of me, to admit that they had falsely accused me, and to express gratitude for my years of mortgage payments. Rather, Mom turned to face me with a resolute expression. Well, now we know what happened, but someone still needs to pay for the repairs. Excuse me? I was hearing something that seemed unbelievable. The insurance won't cover this because it was negligence, Dad said. We need $33,000 to fix everything. And since you've been helping with the mortgage, I interrupted him. Are you seriously still expecting me to pay for the damage Harper caused? Mom responded, She's injured, pointing to Harper's burn. And you make more money than any of us. It's the right thing to do. I stared in shock at my family. They still wanted me to clean up Harper's mess after everything. The falsehoods, the bogus allegations, the video proof. I said, you know what? I'm done. In a voice that was dangerously low. I took my house key from my carrying and threw it on the coffee table, saying, I'm done paying the mortgage on a house I never use. I'm done being your ATM. I'm done being accused of things I didn't do, while Harper gets away with everything. I felt lighter and heavier all at once when I left my parents' house that day. I was lighter because I had finally defended myself, and I was heavier because I knew that my family would never really support me. I didn't use my phone for the following few days. I couldn't handle them at the moment. My mother had missed 12 calls, my father had missed 5, and Harper had sent me a series of irate texts when I eventually checked my messages. I debated whether or not to listen to the voicemails while sipping a glass of wine on my couch. I hit play on the first one against my better judgment. Lisa, it's Mom, she said in a softer, more deceptive tone. We need to talk about the house situation. Your father and I can't afford the mortgage payments without your help, and Harper's burn is worse than we thought. The doctor says she might need a skin graft to prevent scarring. Please call us back. We're family. We need to stick together. After deleting it, I went on to the next one. Not a single apology for accusing me of something I didn't do, guilt tripping, and references to family obligations were more of the same. My coworker Jen texted me, then my phone rang. Have you seen your mom's Facebook post? Call me? I felt sick to my stomach. It was at the top of my feed when I hurriedly opened Facebook. Heartbroken today. My younger daughter Harper was injured in a house fire, and now her sister Lisa is refusing to help with her medical bills or house repairs. It's devastating when family turns their back on you in your time of need. Please keep us in your prayers as we navigate this difficult time. Numerous kind remarks had already been made, accusing me of being callous and promising to provide financial support for my parents. Conveniently, the post did not mention that I had been paying their mortgage for years or that Harper was the cause of the fire. I yelled, "Are you kidding me?" into my empty flat. My blood pressure increased as I read through the comments. What kind of sister would do that? Family should always come first. Some people are so selfish without thinking it through. After clicking on the video that Mr. Carlson had provided, I submitted it straight to my mother's page as a remark. Since my mother didn't tell the whole story, here's what really happened. My sister Harper threw an unauthorized party at my parents' house that I've been helping pay the mortgage on for 5 years. Someone tried to make flaming shots, causing a fire. Instead of calling the fire department, they tried to handle it themselves. Harper got burned in the process. Then they all fled the scene without telling anyone, and Harper tried to blame me for the fire. These are the facts, with video evidence from the neighbor's security camera. As soon as I pushed post, I started to feel anxious. Chaos would result from this, but I was sick of being portrayed as the bad guy in my family's story. The truth has to be said for once. My phone was blowing up again within an hour. Harper phoned first, and as soon as I answered, she screamed. She screamed, "How could you do this to me?" That video was seen by my employer. At work, everyone is discussing it. Next month, I was expected to get promoted. Maybe you should have thought of that before you lied about me starting the fire, I said quietly. That post and video are going to ruin my life. The truth is ruining your life, Harper, not me. She ended the call. Then Dad called. He said, "Your mother is in tears," without even saying hello. And I just got off the phone with Tom Richards. Harper's workplace was owned by Tom Richards, an old friend of Dad's. "He's angry with me," Dad went on. "States that he cannot allow someone with such bad judgment to represent his business. Are you aware of your actions? Because you were unable to simply assist your family during a time of need, you have ruined your sister's professional opportunities and our friendship." I emphasized a time of need that Harper created, and then lied about, and then you all tried to make me pay for. "Lisa, we are family. We're meant to support one another." Amusing. When it comes to supporting or believing me, it doesn't appear to be the case. Dad's tone became icy. "If you won't take that post down, don't bother calling us again." Saying, "Don't worry, I won't." I blocked all of their numbers after hanging up. After that, I blocked them on all social media platforms. I was finished. The weeks that followed were peculiar. At times, I felt bad and wondered whether I had gone too far in publicly humiliating people. However, I would later recall how quickly they accused me, how they never expressed regret, and how, even when the truth was revealed, they still expected me to pay for Harper's error. My work became my haven. I took on more work, remained late, and put myself into projects. My supervisor took note. He said, "Everything okay, Lisa?" Following an especially demanding day, my response was, "Just family stuff." He gave a nod. On Facebook, I saw something, wanted to avoid prying. I shrugged and said, "It's okay. It's public now. Sometimes family isn't what you need it to be." His grin was sorrowful. "Tell me about it," he urged. "For what reason has my brother not communicated with me in 15 years? A damaged lawnmower that was borrowed. Families may be complex." The ensuing months were fairly quiet. There were no more guilt-tripping calls from my parents or irate texts from Harper, and my phone remained silent. After years of suffocation, it felt like a breath of fresh air as I blocked them on every stage. My managers praised me and even gave me a modest bonus because I put my all into my work. I began dating Craig, a guy from the marketing department, on the weekends. After the turmoil with my family, he was just what I needed, thoughtful and drama-free. Craig said, "You seem lighter," one evening when we were strolling across the park. "Like you put down a heavy backpack you've been carrying for years." I grinned. That's exactly how it feels. Before I quit, I was spending money on my family's issues. I saw my savings account increase each month. The funds that had previously been used to pay off my parents' mortgage were now being saved for my own future. I began perusing apartment ads, envisioning a space that would be all mine. My Aunt Susan contacted around 4 months after the explosion. Despite everything, we had remained in contact since she had always been the sensible one in my mother's family. "Lisa, honey, how are you holding up?" She spoke in a kind, worried tone. "I'm good. Aunt Susan really good, actually." She stopped and said, "I'm glad to hear that. I thought you might want to know what's happening with your folks and Harper." I paused. Curiosity overcame my desire to declare I didn't care. "What's going on?" "Your dad attempted to fix up a rural property, but they were unable to make the mortgage payments. He did a fairly bad job of mending it himself, and the fire damage was awful. They sold it last month, and you and I both agreed on that." "Oh," I said, unsure of how to react to that. They hardly had enough money to cover their mortgage. They're quite upset about losing the location. Susan let out a sigh. They wouldn't ever acknowledge it. For all those years, you were holding them afloat. As twilight descended, I gazed out my apartment window and saw the city lights flicker on. What about Harper? The other thing is that Tom Richards, Harper's boss and Dad's old buddy, and your parents got into a heated argument when your video became widespread in their social network. "Right," I answered.